All right, guys, we'll get rocking and rolling here shortly on the program. Good Tuesday for you. Give that show a like and a share anywhere you guys are watching. Paul Tudor Jones, who I think we identified on maybe last week, maybe the week before, as the mysterious anonymous investor to the UVA athletic department. He was on CNBC today. This is a UVA alum, Paul Tudor Jones, the son of John Paul Jones, whose namesake is on the basketball arena. And he was talking about stocks and equities this morning on CNBC and the economic and economic climate and the environment we're in. So we'll relay some of his perspective today. A UVA alum and a man who was a billionaire, a boxer at the University of Virginia, a guy who knows this business inside and out. We will also talk today about the labor market, some macro data released with the labor market, and we'll see if we can put the labor market in perspective from a local Charlottesville level. Fantastic job opportunity over at Animal Connection for those that are looking for work. Again, we'll ask the question today, what are people doing to pay their bills? Here's another question I have for you. As big-time brands like Starbucks and Wawa enter this market, Checkers is coming to the market. What impact is that going to have on the labor market for mom and pops, for locally owned businesses? Look, let's cut to the chase. Charlottesville and Albemarle County, Central Virginia in totality, is a phenomenal place to do business. Why? Because there are a lot of wealthy people here. Right, Judah? We'll talk about this with Judah. Get that mic over there and make sure that volume is ready to rock and roll. We know there's a ton of wealthy people here. So
and
if you're
growing daily?
Yeah, growing daily, right? So if there's big time brands that have burn rate, right? Chipotle's opening on the UVA corner. Checkers is opening at Zion's Crossroads. Wawa is opening at Fifth Street Station, or before Fifth Street Station, on Fifth Street Extended. These brands realize that there's buku wealth in Charlottesville, Albemarle County, and Central Virginia. So they're opening many locations. Good God, how many Starbucks are in this area, right? As these big-time brands with burn rate and deep pockets open in our region, they're cannibalizing the human capital from mom and pops, from locally owned businesses. Let's talk about that today on the program. Give the show a like and a share. Judah Wickhauer is our director. Alex Erpy will join us in about 16 minutes today in the program. A lot we're going to cover on the show. I got a lot of positive feedback of your contributions yesterday on the program, Judah. A lot of positive feedback. So you got some high expectations to match and live up to, and there's no doubt in my mind that you're going to do it today. We'll have the equilateral triangle of content rocking and rolling today. Alex, just a heads up, you're going to be in a little bit of a different spot today on today's program from a seating standpoint. Judah, we can rock and roll when you're ready.
Quiet on the set.
Guys, welcome to the I Love CVille show. My name is Jerry Miller. Thank you kindly for joining us. A good Tuesday afternoon to you. We are live in Charlottesville, across Albemarle County, the Commonwealth, the country, and the world on the I Love CVille network. Today we're presented by Skooma Boutique Dispensary. The best dispensary in Charlottesville is Skooma Boutique Dispensary, with a location on the downtown mall next to Rapture Restaurant, in a location on Elliewood Avenue. Skooma Boutique Dispensary. So much to cover on today's program. Paul Tudor Jones was on CNBC today talking about the economic climate, not just domestically but globally. And the economic climate, as he's outlined, as we know, is in a precarious position. And Paul Tudor Jones, the billionaire hedge fund investor, the UVA alum, the guy who we think we correctly identified as the mysterious anonymous donor to the University of Virginia Athletic Department a couple of weeks ago, he talks about the KPIs that you and I know extremely well. We got a war, Russia-Ukraine, impacting supply chain and commodities across the globe. We got inflation spiking through the roof. We got labor shortages that are incredibly concerning. We got Jay Powell and the Federal Reserve raising rates. The increase in rates is pinching everyone from Fortune 50, Fortune 100 businesses, all the way down to the mom and pop businesses, all the way down to people looking to buy cribs and houses. So there's a lot of colliding KPIs happening at once. More data released, macro data today, that I think is very relevant to Charlottesville. The job openings and the level of people quitting their work reached record highs in March. Job openings hit a record high of 11,550,000 in March, according to the Labor Department's JOLTS report. Quitting of jobs totaled 4,540,000, also a record and indicative that the labor market remains historically tight. The gap between open jobs and available workers hit 5.6 million, another new high. So you got a lot of records associated with job openings, people quitting their jobs, and businesses at a loss for where they're going to find employees. I'm going to ask this question, and this is an important topic to consider, okay? Charlottesville and Albemarle County, we'll call the region of Central Virginia in totality, are about as wealthy of a region that you're going to find in the Commonwealth. You got pockets of Northern Virginia that can compete with Charlottesville and Albemarle County from a wealth standpoint, in accumulation of wealthy citizens with people with disposable income. What you're going to pick what? Maybe like a McLean. Maybe you can do a quick Google search for us there, Judah. Zip codes in Virginia with the most wealth. I would Google this. What Virginia zip codes are the wealthiest? And see what comes up. And rattle off that list for us if you could. Judah Wickhauer's our enterprising and talented director. But let's cut to the chase. Charlottesville and Albemarle County are as wealthy as just about any zip code in the Commonwealth. We are seeing, are you seeing this? I'm certainly seeing this. Who's seeing Starbucks more than ever in Charlottesville and Albemarle County? I am. Me. Who has seen of late the proliferation of Wawas in Charlottesville and Albemarle County? Me. I have. Who is seeing the proliferation of Chipotles in this area, of Chick-fil-A's in this area? Me. I have. Chick-fil-A, Barracks Road. Chipotle about to open on the UVA corner. Wawa about to open on 5th Street Station in the old Hardee's location. Marshall's opening up a spot in 5th Street Station. The big brands, the corporate behemoths, they get the data before anyone else. The data you and I know, viewers and listeners of the show, is the pulse of the street, Main Street. We know Charlottesville and Albemarle County are wealthy because we live here and we have our pulse on what's going on just like you do. These major brands, these big-time corporations, the data they get is not the pulse or the chatter on the street. It's macro data that they source from third parties. And that macro data they source from third parties explains or tells them open locations in Charlottesville and Albemarle County. Spend the money you got, the deep coffers of wealth that you have, and use it to open up locations in Charlottesville and Albemarle. Overspend to get those locations. Chipotle, taking over the College Inn on the UVA corner. Chipotle, they took an institution, the College Inn, they considered the lease that the College Inn had, they did a deal with the landlord and said, we're going to pay more per rent than the College Inn paid price per square foot. We're going to give you a better lease, and we're going to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not $1 million, and completely revitalize the space and build it out completely and make it look new. So here you are, you're a landlord on the UVA corner. And as a landlord on the UVA corner, you hear that a major brand, an out-of-market brand, is going to give you a long-term lease. And that long-term lease is going to have a price per square foot that's way higher than the previous tenant that was there for generations. Not only is it going to be a long-term guaranteed lease, a lease backed by a brand like Chipotle, where you know they're likely not going to default on the lease. Not only is it going to be a long-term lease by a quality tenant, but it's going to be a price per square foot that is substantially more than the previous tenant. And it's going to include a tenant that has such deep pockets, they're going to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars building out the space. If you're the landlord of the space on the UVA corner, obviously you're going to rent to Chipotle. If you're Riverbend Development, who own the Hardee's location on 5th Street Station, Corin Capshaw's outfit, obviously you're going to choose to rent to a Wawa as opposed to a locally owned business because of all of the factors I just identified with the Chipotle lease on the UVA corner. Long-term tenant, deep pockets, freaking gonna contribute to the structure, the build-out. So here's the thesis of my argument. You got those wealthy zip codes, J-Dubs?
Yeah, I've got the top 5.
All right, we'll go to you in a matter of moments. I would imagine the top 5 is all Nova. I got to think Charlottesville and Albemarle County are pretty darn close to those. We'll hear from Judah Wickower, our director, on a two-shot in moments. Here's the thesis of my argument. The area is so wealthy. Charlottesville and Albemarle. And because of that wealth, big brands come here to open. And these big brands are going to hire people. And these big brands that are hiring people, Chick-fil-A's, the Wawa's, the Starbucks, they're cannibalizing the staff. Excuse me, my allergies are killing me. From locally owned businesses. It's no secret that locally owned businesses in Charlottesville and Albemarle and Central Virginia are struggling to find staff. And because of that struggle, they're doing a lot of things to try to attract hirees to their businesses. Signing bonuses and perks they never had to do. So these signing bonuses and perks they never had to do are hurting the bottom line. Gosh, excuse me, I'm sorry, are hurting the bottom line for the locally owned business. Let's hear the two-shot. Let's see what you got, Judah, for those businesses. Gosh, what do you got, Judah? Two-shot. Just hang a seat right there. Two-shot, Judah Wickower. What do you got for those 5? This is where you're sitting there. Judah, you go.
I've got Loudoun County, McLean, Great Falls, Arlington, and Fairfax.
One more time on those, please.
Loudoun, is it Loudoun or Loudoun?
Loudoun County.
Loudoun County, McLean, Great Falls, Arlington, and Fairfax.
And what's the number one for, what's the price point on number one?
Who does it best? That would be Loudoun County. They're sitting at almost 442,000 mean income.
Okay. So I would bet you Albemarle County, how deep does that list go that you found?
I can search any of them, but we're not even close.
Gotcha. What is Charlottesville? Please.
Charlottesville is
I'm dying over here.
Charlottesville is sitting at 59 and a half.
Okay. So Charlottesville and Albemarle County.
Albemarle County is sitting a little higher at 84 and a half.
Okay. And that's per household?
Yeah.
84,500.
Median household income.
Okay.
Which is obviously not even close to any of the top five.
Yeah, I said they weren't in the top five.
Yeah.
I said they're going to be one of the wealthiest ones in Virginia. What's the median for Virginia in totality?
Let's see.
So the whole thesis. Thank you, Dan Pettit. I'm working on fighting these allergies. It always affects me at this time. Albemarle County and Charlottesville are getting their employee base, especially for entry retail and entry food service, cannibalized by big brands coming to this area. These big brands coming to this area are chopping at the bit. Look at Chick-fil-A. Have you gone through a drive-through at Chick-fil-A? They literally have one of the most well-trained staffs of any food service or retail business that I've ever seen. Have you seen the staff at Chick-fil-A? Yes, sir, no, sir, incredibly polite. Somehow Chick-fil-A is paying staff or getting staff to stand in a drive-through line, inhaling carbon monoxide fumes that come from cars, outside in heat, cold, and inclement weather. They don't even use, a lot of times at Chick-fil-A, the automated menu boards. It's someone walking to your car to take your order. When the big corporate brands can pay staff like they're paying staff now, it's going to only hurt the mom and pops. The mom and pops now are having to offer perks, signing bonuses, shorter work weeks, points on the package, free goods from the business just to try to get staff. And here's the unfortunate aspect. As the big brands proliferate and come into this area even more, and we're just seeing the true beginning of this. I have identified on this show why I think the UVA Corner is going to be a destination for big brands and big brands only. When I was a student at the University of Virginia from 2000 to 2004, we didn't have smartphones. We didn't have Uber and we didn't have scooters. So all we knew were the bars and the restaurants and the retail on the corner. Now students have smartphones, scooters, and Uber. So the captive audience that was once the UVA Corner is no longer so captive. Now it's students looking to explore the jurisdiction in totality. And as a result of that lack of captive audience in the UVA Corner, the businesses that can afford to withstand the sales cycle of the corner are now big box brands. Chipotle and College Inn, Sheetz giving it a whirl. And it's not so much going to be the locally owned businesses anymore. as we get more big box brands hitting this area and cannibalizing the talent that's out there, that talent is going to migrate from locally owned to big box, unfortunately. And the locally owned are going to have to think outside the box to attract that talent to them. And the unfortunate aspect is it's going to have to come from financial incentives. And those financial incentives are going to shrink the margin of the locally owned even more. It's a terrible, terrible cycle. I'm seeing it firsthand. Our advertising agency, VMV Brands, we have one thing in common with all our clients. All our clients, A, are very profitable. We hope it's part of it working with us raising awareness for them. But B, they're all looking to hire somebody. Take Patty Zeller. Patty, if you're watching the program, let us know. She is the owner of Animal Connection. She is offering, do you know, can we go to the two shop before we go to Alex? Let's rattle off, do you have what Patty is offering for a hiree at Animal Connection, Judah, that you can rattle off for us?
Let's see.
I can find it too if you need to, if you need me to. It's on our Facebook page as we help her trying to find a new team member for her business. Free dog food for her team members. She's offering. You got that in front of you? That you can rattle off?
Let's see.
And she's not the only one. Folks in the remodeling space offering signing bonuses. Folks in the transportation space offering signing bonuses. Folks in food and beverage offering signing bonuses. If you stay for X amount of period of time, you get more money. It is substantial. You got those, Judah?
Yeah.
Let's rattle it off.
You just want me to read down through the whole thing?
Yes.
You've loved your pets your whole life. Wouldn't you like to get paid for it? If you are as fun-loving and friendly as a golden doodle puppy, the kind of foodie your pets appreciate.
All right, let's go to the perks.
Animal Connection offers generous starting pay and bonus potential, flexible scheduling options, free pet food for your family pets, paid holidays and paid personal time off, product training, medical and dental insurance, volunteering time with pet nonprofits, and growth potential in a really cool place to work.
It's a retail business.
Yeah.
And can't find anybody to work.
I mean, that's crazy.
Can't find anybody to work. Now, you're going to be working weekends.
Not everybody's offering medical and dental.
I mean, you're going to be working weekends.
Stuff.
You know, that's for sure. So maybe that's one of the reasons.
Maybe.
But can't find anybody to work. Now, retail's not for everybody. You got to be personable on your A+ game every single time, like an outgoing, bubbly person. If you're not going to get the job. You know, if you want to be reserved, you're not going to work in retail, period. You got to constantly be on point and outgoing and bubbly, or you won't get the job. Let's get Alex on a 3-shot, and let's see if we can figure this out. What do you make of this?
It's crazy. And she's not the only one. I mean, I know some businesses, local businesses, that the Port Eyes, they have to close certain days of the week.
She closed yesterday.
Because they just cannot find staff. So they literally cannot be open on certain days of the week, which is lost revenue for them, lost expenses for them. Because, there are some fixed expenses that you have all the time that you need to cover, which are still running even when your business is not open.
Like
so
rent.
It's just devastating.
Yeah. Kerry Rock watching the program. Kerry Rock's going to join us on the show from Do Good Seville. He offered some perspective on the zip codes. So you gave us Albemarle County in totality. Kerry Rock drilled down into Albemarle specifically. He said average median household in Crozet is $100K. Ivy is $156,000.
Yeah.
$156,000
Kinda makes
is the
sense.
median household income in Ivy. Here's the take. Albemarle and Charlottesville, it's no secret, super freaking wealthy. And when you compare Albemarle and Charlottesville to Northern Virginia, from a rent standpoint, it's considerably lower. So it's no secret we're seeing like the Wawas, we're seeing like the Chipotles, we're seeing the Starbucks, the Chick-fil-A's opening everywhere.
Absolutely. Why
They're
wouldn't they?
taking the talent
Why
from the
wouldn't
locally
they?
owned.
Why wouldn't they? They can afford to do it right now, and there's just a certain level of competition in there among businesses to get talent, which drives up obviously labor costs. Which the larger businesses, you also I think have a little bit of, how do I put it? It's what monopolies will do, even though some of these businesses are not monopolies. In other words, a new Chipotle has a runway, whereby even if they lose money for a little while, if that can knock out a couple of the competitors, they're still standing at the end. If that makes sense. In other words, a small business doesn't have a larger person backing them saying, you have 1 year of losing money before I rethink this location. A new location of a larger business may have that.
Kevin Higgins says, and Chipotle heading to the old TGA Friday spot on Route 29.
Another, so what's that going to be?
We
There's
got
already
Pantops,
Barracks,
UVA Corner, Route 29.
Route 29, 4 Chipotles.
Chick-fil-A open at Barracks Road.
They're already at Barrett's. There's one on Pantops. There's still one
Lowe's.
on 29. Yeah, by Lowe's on 29.
They just took over the Burger King spot on Barracks Road.
And the Barrett's one is packed. I mean, that drive-through is
Overwhelmingly
it's
packed.
constantly full of people.
Wawa opening another location. They just finished Pantops
They just
less than
built
a year
that
ago.
one.
They built it, Pantops. Now they're going to do with Riverbend Development on 5th Street Extended. So Kevin Higgins, we'll get to your comment here in a matter of moments. Jason Howard says, Sheets' game plan was to have 5 in Albemarle County in the very near term. So we're seeing a flood. I mean, let's rattle off the, go ahead, Al.
This also streams, these businesses are seeing population growth. Like, therefore seeing, you don't put 5 locations of Chipotle, what is it, 4 or 5 locations of Chipotle within 10 miles of each other, unless you expect there to be a lot of people, more people living here in the next 5 years than there are now, and a lot more people.
Judah, what do you make of this?
I'm curious as to where the growth is going to go, because as we've been seeing, people are getting priced out of the area.
But the people who are getting priced out of the area are just getting replaced by wealthy people.
Yeah, but wealthy people are not going to work at Wawa.
But wealthy people will go to Wawa. They'll get serviced by someone that's driving from outside of the area to work at Wawa.
Yeah, but again, you've been talking about the fact that nobody can find people to hire. So at what point is the saturation of outside businesses going to say, look, we would love to keep doing business here, but we don't have anyone to hire.
That's a great take
Yes,
right
we
there.
have a
It
bunch
is.
of rich people to service, but we don't have anyone to help us service them.
That's a great take. Your thoughts on that?
No, he's right. I mean, there are
Great
points,
take.
as much as we like to assume that large corporations, franchises always make the right decisions. You can see from history, sometimes they do oversaturate. In other words, you build a bunch of locations, and then if 1 or 2 begin to not perform anymore, can't find work, you close them. Right? So it's not a crazy circumstance whereby you would have a flood of new locations, at which point it would get whittled down if indeed either the demand is not there to satiate those locations, or, like to Judah's point, you can't find the workers. Now granted, if technology enables them and people were happy ordering from kiosks, they may not need that many workers, but barring that, you at some point you can oversaturate from demand. I mean, there's a lot of stories of large corporations that basically built too many locations.
I mean, let's throw this hypothetical. Judah, great take right there. You have a community, Charlottesville and Albemarle County, that's becoming wealthier than it's ever been.
Mm-hmm.
You have a community that is Charlottesville and Albemarle County where folks that are new to the area are literally replacing folks that were otherwise long time to the area, and the folks that are newer to the area are coming in with considerable wealth. Mm-hmm. To Judah's point, the people that are coming to this area that are wealthy are not going to take jobs at Wawa or Chick-fil-A or retail jobs.
If they're coming here, chances are they probably already have a job lined up.
And they're probably working from their basement or their home office.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's say the scenario happens, which clearly it's happening. The folks that are waiters and the folks that end up working retail, the folks that end up working quick serve or fast casual restaurants, some of the folks that we see working at Bodo's, there's going to be a mix of a couple. It's either going to be students or it's going to be folks that are commuting to the area from the outer counties.
It's going to be mostly students, I think.
That's what you think?
Well, I mean, as we price people out, are people really going to drive all the way into Charlottesville? I think people aren't just going to move out of the immediate area. They're going to look for lower places where it's cheaper to live altogether and
What do you
not
think?
have to drive
And-
50 miles to get it to work a Wawa job.
But look, if someone's driving 50 miles, let's say the person's living at Buckingham County, right? Buckingham County may be the last on this side of the mountain area of housing affordability. From Buckingham County, you can find an entry-level home at Buckingham in the twos. High twos, okay? Very few counties are going to offer that. So if someone's driving from Buckingham and they want to take Patty Zeller's a phenomenal boss at Animal Connection, right? We've worked with her for 6 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've never had her as a boss, though.
She's, okay, well, she
She's
is
a good
phenomenal.
woman.
Yeah.
We love her.
So, Judah. I'm going to get off that. She's a phenomenal boss at Animal Connection. Here's the question. If someone's going from Buckingham County to Charlottesville, they're going to have to weigh this question. There are no jobs in Buckingham. I can only afford to live here. If I drive to Charlottesville for a job, that's going to be 45 minutes of gas one way and my time.
With gas the highest it's been in years.
With gas the highest it's ever been in years, and mechanics not able to see people with their cars right now, how is that going to work?
What's probably going to happen is, on the one hand, I agree with you and Judy. You're going to see students probably taking some of the retail jobs, the low-paying retail jobs, right? Which isn't necessarily a bad thing if it were happening in isolation. In other words, if people were able to grab it, because in reality, you don't want working people to have to take jobs in retail where there is no chance of advancement, right? Typically, those historically were student jobs because they paid so low, right? And ideally, that's not a bad thing that they'd be student jobs again. The problem is that there are no middle-class jobs, the higher pay advancement jobs, where people can actually go work instead. A lot of those have been wiped out, your old-fashioned manufacturing jobs. So the issue is, what jobs will these people that have no choice but to move out to Buckingham take? Like, what jobs will be left for them? But my suspicion is that you cannot afford to drive 45 minutes back and forth to Buckingham every day on a
$15 an hour job.
$15 an hour job.
Say 15, 750. The Animal Connection job is fantastic. But to his point, $15, $17.50 an hour, driving to and from Buckingham every time, the gas alone is going to run you
I mean, $10. It's $4 a
$4 a gallon. That's 20 miles you get. You're probably not going to have the most energy efficient car.
No,
working this job.
If you're not on a highway, your miles per gallon is a little lower.
So you're probably looking at in hours of pay at going to your transportation and wear and tear.
Probably. And then then you've got to deal with the
Everything
commute, the misery of a 45-minute commute.
So the question
Yeah.
we got to ask, and Judy, you jump in here. How much of these businesses that we're seeing come online for sale, we talked about how it could be associated with floating debt and burnout associated with the pandemic,
Well, no people.
and now very much labor shortage. What are your thoughts over there, J-Dubs?
I think it's all of that, and I think there might also be a fact that there's a reason we're talking about Wawa and Starbucks and Sheetz and all these other places. It's because I think we're getting to a point where locals can't afford to run businesses here anymore. I think we'll increasingly see those types of businesses come in and take their place. because Charlottesville is not just pricing homeowners out, it's pricing everyone out. And people that come in, I know we like to think that they're rich, but they're not. They're people that make a few $100,000 maybe, and they can afford a nice house, but they're not angel investors. They're not going to be opening their own businesses. They're people that make a decent amount of money and can afford a decent, a decent home and stuff like that. But they're not like, we're not talking millionaires.
What do you think over here, Alex?
Well, he's right. I mean, if you have a bunch of people moving in here making between $100,000 to $200,000, they're not gonna. It's not as though they have millions to shell out and start creating new businesses or buy businesses, and they may not have no interest in doing that. I mean, if you're moving here from Northern Virginia to continue a Northern Virginia job, you're not going to go and say, I'm going to quit that job and now buy a business in Charlottesville with what?
Yeah.
To begin with. So
what's that turn this into?
This is a challenge that I think faces a lot of cities as they grow, because the core gets wealthier and wealthier, and the rent just goes up and up, and the people get pushed to the periphery. So particularly when you don't skyrise it, right? Why doesn't in New York City people still live in Manhattan? Because you pay through the nose for a tiny little hole in a sky-rise building. Here we don't have that, so people get pushed out distance-wise. And I mean, these things don't always go on forever. I mean, the wage spiral that we're seeing now lasts, sad to say, until the next recession, right? At which point, people no longer have the luxury of quitting
sitting on
jobs,
the sidelines,
turning down jobs,
Yeah.
asking for more pay, and things change. I mean, the economy is always shifting and fluctuating, and it neither stays in the employer's favor for very long nor in the labor's favor for very long. It's always a give and take, and it could be you reach a point at which businesses basically either stop being in business or don't open new locations or do more with less people, at which point the number of job openings shrinks and there's less leverage for people that are looking for work.
A lot of comments coming in. Carrie Rock, the boom of Waynesboro speaks to your point. Mm-hmm. Waynesboro booming, cost of living lower. You have big brands popping up left and right all over Waynesboro. Let's get to comments on my page here that are plentiful. Jamie Turner and Jason Howard, Kevin Yancey, Kevin Higgins, hello. These comments coming in here. Buy local seems to work well when buying food. Does not seem to translate as well on non-food businesses. That's from Kevin Higgins. Want to touch that?
It's tough. I mean, there's still just, the issue is when you're not buying food, once you leave the food area, you are not just competing with bot stores here, you're competing with the online marketplace. Like food is pretty much the last area where, even though there are online companies that'll deliver the food to you, for the most part, I think people still buy produce. You go to the store, buy produce. You don't have produce delivered to you by Amazon, even though in some places you can. The issue is once you go to consumer goods, your competition as the small business is local small business, local big chain box stores, and on the entire online world that can deliver to you in 1 or 2 days, and you don't even have to leave your house.
Good take from Erpy right there, CEO of Merchant Financial Services. Here's from Kevin. Just wait till Wawa hits Crozet off the interstate. That area hasn't seen anything yet. Yancey Lumber is the next business park in Crozet. Just watch. A wedding capital of Virginia without a single hotel or late night dining options. Lots of rightful complaints from locals about growth. Put on your seatbelt in Crozet. Business explosions are next, and they won't be wineries and breweries. Kevin Yancey says Lansing Lumberyard will be there 20 years from now. Kevin Higgins responds to Kevin Yancey by saying Mr. Yancey has tried for years to get approvals for a business park. Yancey then says, yes, but it's not on the property. He owns way more acreage. So Crozet, the next boom. So much to cover right here on the program. Folks, Vanessa Parkhill says lots of those retail and service jobs used to be filled by young people. Lots of high schoolers working at Chick-fil-A. Mm-hmm. Dude, has anyone watching this program, mom or dad, had difficulty finding a babysitter. My wife and I
Imagine.
finding it impossible to get a babysitter for our well-behaved 4-year-old. Where before, you would have people beating down your door to watch a little boy who goes to bed at 7 or 7:30, and the remainder in the evening, you have to watch a baby monitor. You sit on a couch, you could be on your phone and watching Netflix.
Yeah.
Now, you can't find anyone to do that work.
That's also not necessarily to their detriment. I will say this is completely anecdotal, so I can't say whether there's data to back this up. I know a lot of people who used to babysit and now can do a lot of freelance work because of technology. They can be writing social media posts for people. They can be sort of same age group, that sort of middle period where you to make extra money, you would have been babysitting. Now you write company social media posts, you take pictures for them, you make videos for them, you do all these things. That age group is so tech savvy at this point. I think they can make their change in a lot of ways other than babysitting now. And why wouldn't you? It's got to be.
It's unbelievable.
Ways, yeah.
It's unbelievable. Jason Howard, in 2012, the General Assembly passed a bill that made tap rooms as we know them legal in Virginia. This created new competition for traditional restaurants. You can open a tap room and have no requirement to have a kitchen and keep a food-beverage ratio in sales. I'd imagine that the kitchen portion of a restaurant is a significant cost. Do you think that the competition offered by breweries and tap rooms is part of why some indie restaurants are closing? Great comment right there.
It's a good point. Plus, a lot of the
How about the
tap
food
rooms
trucks?
have the food trucks.
Yeah.
So if you own a brewery, you've essentially third-partied your food part.
Yeah.
You've outsourced
Yeah,
it.
you've outsourced the food for your brewery to a food truck,
You're
so you
paying
don't
a
have to
little rent.
deal with that part.
You're getting a little rent from the food truck. You're saying, I don't have to deal with the food, and you keep your customer sticky lager drinking your beer or wine.
Exactly. And the food truck deals with whatever the lower. My suspicion is that the food truck is a lower margin business than, just from what I know of restaurants, drinks are a higher margin than food.
Yeah.
So you've kind of also outsourced the lower margin product, and you are selling the higher margin product that goes along with it.
But the food truck can be lower margin because it doesn't have the higher overhead that the brick and mortar
brewery,
restaurant does.
of course.
Because it doesn't have rent.
Oh, yeah.
A better phrase. There probably is some debt service, maybe if they took a loan to purchase the truck.
To the truck.
Yeah, but that'll be substantially lower than a rent payment.
Oh, absolutely.
What do you make of this,
Absolutely.
Judah? What's on the brain over there?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know, as to his question, I don't know how many people are actively, the people that are out there starting restaurants I don't think they're out there to just like make a bunch of money. Some of them have an idea, like the Draft Tap Room, which did have a kitchen as well, although it was, rather limited. But it seems to me, just by looking around at the people that start restaurants and whatnot, they love what they do. It's not about the money. I'm sure a lot of them would love to save some by cutting back on the kitchen that they need, but I just can't see a bunch of tap rooms opening up around Charlottesville.
MJ Arquette watching the program, Castle Hill's finest.
Yep,
We are
MJ.
lucky to have friends with teens who are now old enough to babysit. However, we used to subscribe to a babysitting website and through it hired several lovely UVA grad students as sitters over the years. Not sure if that's still a thing, and I cannot for the life of me remember the site. We paid a monthly fee to be on it though. We use MJ some of the websites as well to find babysitters and still are struggling to find sitters. And the extent of the sitting experience, and our peers and our friends are having a similar plight or difficulty. Literally the extent of what it is come to our house. Our son will likely be in bed already. We will put him down for you. You have to sit on the couch. Here's the Wi-Fi. Here's our Netflix. You can use your computer. Watch the baby monitor. If something hits the fan, call us and text
Exactly.
us, and we will be back. That's the extent. And we pay cash on the spot. And we're talking
Supervising.
$15 an hour. And can't find anybody.
Wow.
And other folks in the similar plight. So this is coming out for all of us here. Do we think that the future of the locally owned business in Charlottesville and Albemarle County is even more narrow to lifestyle business, meaning the locally owned business owner working most of the hours and shifts themselves because staff and employees are that hard to find?
That's tough to say. I think for the time being, for the short term, the answer has to undoubtedly be yes, short to medium term. Long term, you have both technology that makes it more able for them to do that. So in other words, if you begin to sell online more, you don't actually need. Yes, technically, are you doing more of the work yourself? Yes, but technology is now taking on some of the work that used to be done by labor. On the flip side, like I said, if things shift and suddenly jobs are harder to come by, you may see things shift where the business owner then is able to hire again.
So is the recession tips the scales back in favor of the employer?
Typically speaking.
How close are we to that? Paul Tudor Jones says today on CNBC.
Yeah, he was pretty down.
Dude!
Although he was talking, I think,
So
a lot
down.
of stocks and bond markets. I think he was talking markets even more so than the economy itself, although he certainly was not, he was down on that as well.
That was as bearish a commentary as I've
pretty
seen
much.
in 2022.
But he's not completely wrong in the sense of it's not often you see an environment where stocks and bonds both go down. Typically, they tend to move in inverse directions. So you are seeing a very challenging environment because you sit there and say, no matter what I invest in, there's a good chance that for the time being, it will go down. And you can't sit in cash either because your cash is basically hemorrhaging 8% a year.
Yeah. So what the heck do we do?
Or you need to get invested, generate some income with the knowledge that the beauty of bonds, right, in particular, right? Especially, I think where people are most nervous is, I think a lot of people, especially as they approach retirement and their portfolios are bond heavy, get very nervous because you see the entire value of your portfolio going down. And you sit there and say, I thought the whole purpose of bonds was that I don't lose 5-10% when the market goes down. The difference between stocks and bonds, though, is stocks, technically speaking, right, a company can continue to go down. There is no mathematical, magical floor that prevents a Russell 2000 company, a small cap company, from going all the way to zero, right? A bond, mathematically, particularly if it's an investment grade corporate bond, so you think your Apple, Microsoft bond, or the U.S. bond, Treasury bonds, which have also gone down in price, right? There's a mathematical fact that at some point they have to come back. Because if it's an actual physical bond, if you hold it to maturity, you get your money back. So at some point, the price has to come back. In other words, if I lend you I'll give you a bond for $100, right? You purchase this bond. Even if the price of the bond goes down to 90, if you just hold on to the bond, at some point you get your 100 back. So so the price has to come back to 100. That's a mathematical certainty for government bonds, and it's very close. In other words, you don't expect Apple to go bankrupt, so there's a good chance Apple bonds come back. When you have a bond fund, which is what most people invest in, as those bonds flip, A, you get higher income because the new bonds that go into the fund don't have higher interest rates, and B, at some point the price has to come back. So you need to be willing to go in there and say, yes, I am going to take short-term pain, but when all this is over, I'm going to be happier that I had some combination of stocks and bonds that went back to even and up, and I got some cash in the form of dividends and interest in the meantime. I'm going to be happier with that than if I sat there in cash, and now my cash is worth 8% less than it was when I started. But as that doesn't go back, right? Inflation doesn't go backwards. Even if you did a recession, you might have a little bit of deflation, but inflation, for the most part, does not go backwards. So if your cash loses 8% of its value in the last year, chances are it's not getting back 8% of its value. So you got to take the pain and say, yes, I may lose some in the short term with stocks, I may lose some in the short term with bonds, but if I hold on, I will gain interest in dividends in the meantime, which helps to soften the blow. And eventually these things will come back because these companies will not go down forever. And bonds mathematically, particularly government bonds, considering the U.S. is not going bankrupt anytime soon, my feeling is I don't think it's defaulting on its debt. The U.S. government bonds mathematically have to come back.
Alex Erpy dropping knowledge, CEO of Merchant Financial Services. 2 topics viewers and listeners want us to hit again. This one's coming from Jennifer, who's watching the program. Jerry, you talk about lifestyle businesses earlier in the show. Please offer more insight into what a lifestyle business is. So I characterize a lifestyle business, and I'm curious of y'all's take on this here, as a business where the founder is incredibly actively engaged into the company, working almost all the shifts, a business that can support the founder, maybe an additional employee or team member, but the founder is very actively involved in it. Is that how you would characterize a lifestyle business?
Same here. That makes sense.
And one of the reasons I identified the lifestyle business is maybe that's where we're heading in this market where labor is so tight, is because you can keep overhead down. You don't have to run the business associated with people that you can't find or hire. And as a lifestyle business, you could potentially charge increased hourly rates, or the lifestyle business would work much better in a service capacity in a market like this.
Service rather
that's
than goods.
selling goods, which is unfortunate. Because when you're selling a service, you can charge an hourly rate that can climb with wealth coming to this area. But eventually, when you're selling a good, that good is going to be capped or maxed in what you can charge, because it could be purchased on platforms like Amazon and later delivered that day or the next day, which is freaking unfortunate for the
Exactly.
locally owned business.
Yeah,
Is
it
that how
has
you
to
see
be-
it?
It has to be a good, if it's a good, it has to be good that you are heavily involved in creating or transforming in such a way that there's no substitute good.
It's unique.
It's got to be unique. In other words, if you're in pure retail, in other words, I have cost of goods sold, I buy a bunch of things and then I resell them, book shop as an example, you don't have a hard time competing, because at some point your prices are just going to be so much higher than Amazon that people may swap. If you're making, just as an example, if you're making candles that only you make, right, that have particular design, a particular appeal, and you can cultivate your own following, then maybe, because there's no immediate, yes, there are substitute goods, but they're not obvious substitutes. If you really are devoted to a local business and their particular candles, or let's say you love a Vitae Spirits, right? Are there substitutes for Vitae Spirits Modern Gin? Yes, but none of them are the same thing. They're slightly different. So if you cultivate a following, you can get people to keep coming back, even if you raise your prices. The plain old retail, I buy goods, the same things you would find in a box store, and I resell them, where my curation of goods is the selling point. It's going to be a harder time. Service is going to have the most advantage there, because I talk about this sometimes when I give little startup classes that I talk to people. Service is harder to price initially, but you don't have the issue of the cost of goods sold. You don't have a floor that you have to deal with.
Judy, you want to add to this?
Yeah, from what I'm seeing, it looks like lifestyle businesses are largely just a way of keeping up with a certain quality of life. Like, say you need a set amount of money per month to get by, you create a business where you make that much money, and so it's less about trying to bring on people to work for you, less about trying to grow the business, and more about just, okay, I can keep doing this. I spend 30 hours a week. I do whatever I have to do, and I sell stuff, or I do a service or whatever, and I make the money that I need to cover my rent or my my mortgage, cover my food costs, things like that. And so it seems more of it's not the kind of thing that you would expand and try to grow into a bigger and bigger and bigger business.
So thank you for that. The next topic is the people want us to go deeper in the tap rooms. So the tap room is very unique in that people can go to a tap room, drink beer, wine, or cider, spirits, and then have food provided by a food truck. Is that impacting the labor market?
That's difficult to say. Granted, I mean, the breweries obviously provide a good number of jobs. That's a strong local business area. The food truck, strangely enough, tends to, even though I wouldn't describe it as a lifestyle business, it tends to resemble it in the sense of most food trucks is the owner and one or two employees. If the employees are not family members, I know the feeling.
Yeah,
on the allergies.
allergies are killing me.
It's a rough season.
Sorry.
So the combination food truck brewery, I'm not sure is that different from, in terms of its effect on the labor market, than a restaurant. So it has its own challenges there in terms of the competition between the two of them, but I'm not sure that the net effect on the labor market is that different. Now, long term, the net effect to what Judah was saying, the net effect of a lot less small businesses that are actually large enough to employ people is less competition in the labor market from the employer side. So in other words, the short-term gains, ironically enough, the short-term gains for labor, if that drives small businesses out of the market and you were only left with large ones, can be long-term detrimental to labor, because when you have a few large employers, they have much more leverage than 1,000 small ones. Mm-hmm. And so they can then,
That's a great take.
You'll see this with monopsony. Monopsony is the opposite of monopoly. So if you think about a monopoly, right, at the very beginning their prices are low, they drive everyone else out of business. Then they raise their prices and you can't do anything about it because they're the only person left. So if you think about the labor market, large companies come in, they can pay higher than everyone else. The small businesses drop out. Then what do the large companies do? Then they drop their wages. And now you have no one else to go to, because the only people left are the large companies. So long term, it's not, while it may be short-term benefit for labor, having several large companies as opposed to numerous small businesses is long-term detrimental for labor.
Alex Herpy, man. Tuesdays are fantastic with this guy. CEO of Emergent Financial Services, the closer, Xavier Yerpe, has a couple of comments that I want to get to. I love when Xavier Yerpe watches the program and contributes. He says, during inflationary and down markets, you want income so that you can reinvest those funds at lower prices in distressed markets. Income is king.
It is. He's absolutely right. But
Cash on the sidelines.
Remember, cash is losing money. Income is at least generating cash to offset the decline in the value of cash. So think about it. If inflation's 8%, my cash is worth 8% less, but I generated 5% in income, I really only lost 3%. In other words, the income, the fact that I have more cash compensated for the decline in the value of cash. So income becomes even more important. Furthermore, to his point, compounded with the stock market declining, you always hear people say buy low. Well, if you haven't been generating cash and you were fully invested in stocks, what do you buy low with?
Yeah.
You were already in the stock market. If you were in the market and your investments in the market were generating cash flow in the form of interest or dividends, you now have cash that you can reinvest when the market goes down. So you can do that buy low. But you need to have cash to be able to do that, because if you put your money 100% in stocks and those stocks didn't pay you any dividends and they went down in value, you have nothing to buy more stocks with. If you've generated at least some kind of cash flow, you now have additional funds that you can use to buy low. So that's Xavier's point there, and it's an excellent one.
Judah, I see the brain turning over there. You agreed with Alex's take right there.
Yeah, I'm just, I mean, you're talking about if you're making 5% and it's 8%, you're at least making some of that. But is that based on like making 5% more than you were making last year?
So it's based on generation of, so in other words, if I buy, let's say I buy a high yield bond fund that's generating 5% in cash.
I got you.
Yes, did the 5% return that I got in cash decline in value because of inflation by 8? Yes, but my net is -3, whereas if I had left the whole thing in cash, I'm at -8.
Right, I got you.
So the really critically important question over here, as someone who also struggles from allergies, how are you having better luck with me? What is the remedy that the Herpes are utilizing? Because I know your allergies also irritate you.
To be honest,
This is the worst it's ever been for me.
This has been an awful year. I knew it was going to be bad when I had allergies in February, because usually I never get them that early. So when they were bad in February, I said, this is going to be a rough year, and it's been bad. I had to switch. For me, swapping meditations can help. 'Cause
Oh,
usually I
the
take
Clarinet's having
Allegra.
no effect on me.
Have you tried swap? Because I usually take Allegra all the time. By March, Allegra was not working, so I swapped to Zyrtec and then added Flonase because I've learned from my my girlfriend who's in medicine that you can take Flonase and Zyrtec at the same time because they apparently attack two different receptors.
Really?
That they affect. So I do Flonase in the morning or sometimes one of the spray ones, and then I'll take a Zyrtec afterwards. I'll rotate to prevent, I guess I think your body can kind of get used to one if you take the same one all the
You
time.
build up an immunity to the.
Immunity, yeah, you get kind of immunity to the allergy pill.
the
cure.
So you got to rotate. So if
I'm gonna do
if
this.
you've been doing nothing but Claritin,
Yes.
I would say add Flonase in the morning, which really helps with the itchy eyes.
Yeah,
Add Flonase in the morning and then swap to a different one and see if that helps.
thank you. I will try this tomorrow.
That's all I can recommend.
I
And
might
also
try this today.
Rinse it out with like a in the morning, especially with one of those saline solutions. Rinse that thing out because the pollen that gets in there, you gotta get it out of there.
Alex Erpy dropping financial advice and allergy advice.
I've been a long time. So I lived in
Love this man.
California where there was allergies were there 24/7, 12 months a year.
Merchant Financial Services will plan your wealth for the future and help your day-to-day quality of life as well.
There you go.
Through some allergy advice. God, I love this family so much. What do you have planned for today, Manana, my friend?
Today, mañana, some great guests for Thursday. We're going to have Chit and Miguel are going to be back from Serious Tragic Insurance, so good friends of ours, to just talk a little bit about what they're seeing in the insurance markets. Maybe we'll see. Well, maybe I might ask them about trends in homeowners insurance. What they maybe see what they're seeing in terms of home ownership there. Followed by local small business. Karen Waters, she's from Hedge Fine Blooms here in Charlottesville.
Very nice.
So floral arrangements, the kind, fortunately, that hopefully for me don't have much pollen because they've already been arranged. They're not alive anymore, technically speaking. So we will have her on to talk about her local business, a lot of wedding arrangements, beautiful floral bouquets. So combination of some local small business owners there in two different fields, financial services and then local retail.
Today, Manana, Thursdays at 10:15 a.m. on the I Love CVille Network. Alex Erpy is the CEO of Emergent Financial Services. Find them online, emergentfinancialservices.com. I appreciate you guys joining us and bearing with me through allergy season, guys. Thank you for your patience. I hope I'm pulling through. I will utilize his remedies that he just suggested, I promise, today. Judah Wickhauer's contributions are valued and appreciated on this program. Director and just a now turning into a broadcaster, Judah. I think it fits with that moniker, Jack of all trades over there. And he's having a fantastic hair day as well. I'm always jealous of the volume.
He always looks good. He's always got a
jealous
good
of the
look.
volume. He does always look good.
My hair is growing into its own.
I like it. It looks good. It's very hipster. I think it looks very good. My name is Jerry, guys. Tomorrow we will be back at 10:15 a.m. with Real Talk and on the I Love CVille show at 12:30. We're going to continue some of this discussion, guys. It is a common denominator. 103 active clients on the roster for V&V Brands this morning. A common denominator with just about every single one was, what do we do about finding team members for our companies?
Oh, it's everywhere.
Like, we're now running advertising campaigns
To get people.
to get hirees.
Well, same here. I can't tell you how many nonprofits
Hirees.
reaching out to Forward Atlanta. Can you share? They used to share like, here's our services. Now it's sharing, here's our like job applications. Would you mind sharing these?
Something has got to be happening here. Like, we will try to get to the bottom of this. For Judah and Alex, I'm Jerry, and this is the I Love CVille show. So long, everybody.